What's good, peeps? Thanks always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. All right, very quick video. Let's talk PBC for a few minutes. A very important few weeks coming up for PBC. A lot of their big hitters, they're probably their biggest hitters, minus Errol Spence, are in the ring in the next few weeks. Obviously, Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder. That's a big one for them. Pay-per-view, sorry, Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. You have both Charlo brothers in action, right? I think they've both lost the step, I think. The hype surrounding the Charlos sort of back end of 2018, early 2019 was massive. So I think there's a bit of a rebuilding job. That's happening right now. They're both fighting. I think Charlo versus Harrison could be special. I really do. I think the first fight was close. It went the way of Harrison. The lead up to this fight has been a bit naughty. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference yesterday. It was feisty, right? These guys are both promising to knock each other out. I think this is going to be a good one. You've got Chris Eubank Jr. in action. You've got Gervonta Davis in action. Badou Jack in action. So it is a very important next few weeks up until the new year for PBC. Nonetheless, 1 second, sorry. Jack Daniels. It's late, by the way. I'm filming this at like midnight. Lovely drink. All right, let's look at what's been said by Bill Wagner. This was brought to my attention. Bill Wagner is an executive for executive for Fox Sports. What he said is this. I don't want to misquote him, so I do want to read it out and we can discuss it. What we're going to try and do with PBC is we're going to have a PBC belt and a PBC champion. Let's say, for example, the heavyweight division, if Ruiz beats Joshua again, and eventually you have Ruiz versus Wilder, they'll be fighting for the PBC heavyweight title. Interesting words from Bill Wagner there. What do you guys make of this? That doesn't surprise me. A lot of people have sent me that message or that quote, and I'm not as surprised as them. The reason being, when PBC started out this journey, I don't know how long ago it was, 4 or 5 years ago, I think, they were trying to copy the model of the UFC. And just for those of you are clear on what I'm trying to say is that the UFC are the premier organization for mixed martial arts. There are other organizations out there, Bellator, ONE FC, there was Pride, there was Strikeforce, etc., etc. But UFC has always been the premier organization which has 90% of the best talent. They don't have all the best talent, but they have about 90% of it. PBC were trying to do exactly the same thing. PBC were trying to get all the best talent. And they nearly succeeded, right? Remember there was that time when Al Heyman seemed to be signing every single fighter on the planet. Even came over here and signed Amir Khan, James DeGale, Lee Selby, right? It was signing everyone. So that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to become the UFC of boxing, which is basically have 90% of the best talent roster. And then by doing so, a PBC belt almost made sense because fans would believe with them having all of the fighters, which is what they tried to do, right? If they did crown a PBC heavyweight champion, you could almost understand and believe that that was the best heavyweight on the planet. Now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, and that's become a bit different now. The reason it's become a bit different and a bit harder is because a lot of the players back then have now become pretty powerful. Matchroom wasn't as powerful back then as it is now. Matchroom clearly is powerful now. DAZN have entered the market. HBO have said goodbye, right? We know that. But Top Rank seem to become even more powerful with more backing by ESPN. So where it seemed to be going one way and PBC becoming this all big, powerful boxing entity, there's now at least 4 or 5, right? You add in the World Boxing Super Series as well. So there used to be, or what PBC hoped there would be, is one entity controlling the market. Now there's about 4 or 5. So again, if they were going on the same trajectory to which they started, you could understand how a PBC belt made sense. Now it doesn't make sense. It won't make sense because a lot of the talent is scattered everywhere. Top Rank have Lomachenko, Crawford, Inoue, arguably 3 guys in the top 5 pound for pound. DAZN have 2 of the biggest names in Canelo or Joshua. So it's everywhere now. So it won't make sense anymore. So I don't see how that's possible. I can understand the dream, right? I mean, for fans, it would be perfect. For fighters, not so. With the market so hot right now and 4 or 5 different big players in the market, fighters are getting paid astronomical amounts of money for doing not much, if I'm honest with you. And that's no disrespect for fighters. I'm all for fighters, but I don't think they're doing what they're getting paid, if that makes any sense. So for fighters, it's great. For fans, not so. Boxing is in such a weird place right now, right? They're almost, and I never thought I'd say this, but there are almost too many players in boxing, right? Again, if you look at the mixed martial arts model, there are a lot of players in there, but there's a clear number one, and it's number one by some stretch. Bellator and ONE FC are doing good things in order to try and catch up, but UFC dominate that market. Whereas you look at boxing, and I mean, again, there are 3 or 4 players, and you could almost say they're all in an evil playing field, right? So it's difficult for us as fans right now, because the fighters are happy to stay where they are. They don't have to go to a DAZN or to an ESPN to get big money. They can get big money wherever they are right now. So fights just aren't going to happen. And I think it's criminal to think that fights like Crawford versus Spence might not ever happen. Think about that. Crawford versus Spence probably won't happen. You got an instance where, I don't know, Joshua versus Fury, a massive fight for UK fight fans, probably won't ever happen. And that's where boxing is losing out. So again, PBC's idea 4 or 5 years ago, I wasn't too upset about it. When Al Heyman was signing all these fighters, you almost felt like, okay, if all these fighters stay in-house, we're going to get these matchups. Like kind of what's happened in the welterweight division. If you look at all the fighters that PBC have in the welterweight division, they kind of all are mixing with each other. Remember, they have Pac-Man now, they have Furman, Spence, Porter and Garcia, and all those guys are kind of mixing it with each other. That's kind of what they wanted to do. So you can imagine, minus Crawford, a PBC belt in the welterweight division would have actually made sense, right? If Crawford didn't exist and PBC said they're going to create a welterweight belt, it would actually kind of make sense, because all the best welterweights are with PBC. I mean, Chuck and Ugas, he's there as well. So many with PBC. But no, that doesn't make sense. It won't make sense now. And the funny thing is, with all the crap that the sanctioning bodies are doing, so the WBC, WBA, IBF, and all the rest of them, it's funny now, because a PBC belt literally could wipe them all out, to the point where we don't recognize those anymore. But yeah, again, fast forward 5 years and it doesn't make sense. What do you guys think of his statement, a PBC belt and a PBC champion? Do you like the idea? Can you kind of understand where he's coming from if all the best talent were at PBC? Okay, let's just say all the best talent were at PBC. So I mean, you chuck in Canelo, you chuck in all the heavyweights that are not signed, Tyson Fury, Joshua, Usyk. You chuck in all the best talents, Crawford, Inoue, and they fought for a PBC belt. Would you prefer that instead of one of the sanctioning bodies' belts? Don't know. I don't think we would accept it. But it's an interesting thought. And I do wonder how serious he is. What do you guys think? Anyway, let me know before I rattle on too much. Peace.